Hey there, Braves fans. Welcome to another edition of State of the Braves. I'm your host, George McNair. Awesome to be back with you guys as I have come back into town. I was out of town and in Chicago, and yes, I got to go see a Braves game in person this year. Always a treat for me since I don't live in the or near the Atlanta area, so it's always a little bit more of a haul for me to get either down to Atlanta or to another ballpark. This year, my wife and I were able to go with a couple friends to Wrigley Field. First time I've ever been able to go there. As a baseball fan, generally, it's kind of a thing that I think should be on everybody's bucket list. So that was really awesome to experience. Unfortunately, I got to see the Braves snap their 14-game winning streak and score no runs. So, 1-0 loss, but nonetheless, it was Wrigley. It was perfect weather. We had great seats. So just an all-around good experience that would have been made perfect if the Braves would have won, but it was a really cool thing to be able to do. I will just tell you, if you've never been to Wrigley Field, you definitely should go. I could tell, even though I'd never been before, I could definitely tell that they'd made a lot of upgrades over the last several years to make the ballpark, while it's still incredibly historic, and I don't think they've really messed with most of that character. They have added some things that were pretty fan-friendly. We had some great food right before the game at a barbecue place there. Walked in, there was a lot of concessions nearby. Anyways, just a great ballpark, and if you haven't had the chance to go there, I would strongly recommend you do that. Of course, when the Braves are playing the Cubs. I was at game one of that series, and I just want to recap kind of what the Braves have been doing the last week, as it's been a little bit down but then back up. You can't fault the Braves too much. I mean, they won 14 in a row. So yes, they dropped 2 out of 3 to the Cubs, which honestly is not the greatest thing in the world. The Cubs came into that series losing 10 in a row. It's kind of a historic matchup of losing streak versus winning streak. But, I had a bad feeling going into that game because baseball is like that, where, streaks just don't they don't last forever anyways. Statistically speaking, you're expecting streaks to be snapped, and you had two streaks coming in there, and even though the Braves are by far the better team on paper, I don't think many people would argue that. It just seemed almost bound to happen. But nonetheless, Braves dropped game one. But the huge thing that I did get to see in person, I was telling my Cubs friends, my friends that I went with, the Cubs fans, I was telling them that Morton had not been very good all year, and they didn't believe me because Morton was awesome in that game. In fact, it may have been kind of the game in which everything clicked for him. He had a pretty good game the game before. It wasn't sharp in every respect. He did have a lot of strikeouts in the game before that game against the Cubs, but in that one he was just flawless through 7 innings, and unfortunately the Braves just could not score in that game. The one thing I'll tell you, in person, the wind, we know this anyways, but when you're at Wrigley, if the wind's blowing in, it is really hard to get the ball out of the ballpark. And the Braves, I think I counted at least 4 balls to the warning track. I know Acuna hit one that I know he thought was out just because of his reaction. There was another one that Olsen hit early in the game that I thought was out. And I just kept being disappointed as the ball died to the warning track. So maybe in normal games, other ballparks, the Braves get a couple out and win that game. But nonetheless, they fell 1-0 in that game, and even had a chance right at the end with the bases loaded to win it. Just could not do it. Game 2 of that series, Kyle Wright unfortunately did not look very sharp. And I was not able, because I was touring around Chicago, I was not able to actually watch much of that game, so I'm not going to dive too deeply into that one. But you just look at the box score, he allowed a few runs, and unfortunately that continued last night against the Giants. Wright seems to be going through a little bit of a struggle period. Hopefully he can adjust to that. I don't know what's going on there. He just seems to be giving up a lot of hits and a lot of base runners. Still striking out some guys, and I'm not concerned at this point, but the things that he was doing early in the season to be really truly dominant has faltered a little bit recently. So hopefully he can get back on track in his next start. The Braves didn't do a ton offensively in that game. Adam Duvall did hit a home run in that game. He had a couple. I think Swanson continued his good hitting as well. And I will just say, I'm not going to go too deeply into this, but I was really hard on Duvall. I think fairly, but hard on Duvall early in the season, and it seems like he's just starting to turn it around as he's getting his legs out from under him and back in left field and all that. So very happy for Duvall. I like him. I mean, just generally, I think he's a really solid guy in the Braves clubhouse. So hopefully he will continue to perform moving forward here. Game 3 of the Cubs series, the Braves, after a 14-game winning streak, had a 2-game losing streak going, and they snapped that one and had a really nice game, 6-0 win. They got a great start from Ian Anderson, who went 6 2/3 innings, which is really pretty deep in the game for him. Only 2 walks in that game, 6 strikeouts. So really good to see him pitching well, as he's been kind of out. I'd honestly just say he's been middle of the road so far this season. I think his numbers back that up. Really nice day from d'Arnaud. He had a big 3-run homer. Olson, who had not a good series, I think his batting average had dropped down into the low 240s, but he had a really good game in that final game against the Cubs. 3 doubles, and Michael Harris has been awesome, and he had a home run in that game. Another opposite field shot. If you have not seen Michael Harris play yet, or haven't been paying too much attention, his opposite field power and just honestly his ability to go the other way is pretty awesome. And a lot of people have said this, but once he starts turning on some balls on top of what he's able to do going the other way, he's going to be a force. And so it's just really, really fun, really awesome to see that from him. Okay, so on to the Giants series. So you had really a disappointing series against the Cubs after this 14-game winning streak, and you're hoping that the Braves are not going to kind of come back to earth too much, slide back, and maybe do away with some of the good stuff they had been able to do over those 14 games. And fortunately for the Braves, they took 3 out of 4 from a pretty good Giants team. So Game 1 and Game 3 were particularly really good games for the Braves. Had some late game heroics in both of those games. You have Orlando Arcia with a walk-off hit in Game 1 of that series. Adam Duvall has actually some terrible at-bats against Rodon in Game 3, who was just very good and has been very good all year. Braves were able to kind of outlast him, get to the bullpen, and Duvall had a huge hit in that in the 9th inning for a walk-off there. That 9th inning in Game 3 against the Giants was a pretty fun inning to watch. Again, the Braves had not done much at all against Rodon all game. They get into that inning. Swanson immediately hits a home run to bring the Braves within 1. Ozuna had a kind of wacky single the other way, and it was able to get on for Contreras. Ozuna was able to take second in a pretty good base running play. And yes, Marcell Ozuna with a good base running play is kind of rare, but he was very aggressive on that play. Olson hit the ball to center field, was able to move up, and then Contreras singles him home, and then he steals second on a strikeout from Arcia, and then he was able to score the winning run. So some great base running from maybe some guys you're not expecting to do that. But I think what you saw in that game, and what I hope continues, is the Braves being aggressive on the base paths. I think you're going to occasionally run into some things, run into some outs doing that. But I think generally we saw that last year, the Braves being the aggressive base running team, making things happen, stealing bases. I think it brings something just mentally to your team when you are the aggressor. We've seen that at the plate as well recently, and I think it's served them pretty well. You can get into some bad situations that way, especially at the plate. I think occasionally the Braves are a little too aggressive when they get guys on, and we'll, first pitch swinging will kind of get them out of some good opportunities. But nonetheless, I think generally that is kind of how the Braves play, and it tends to serve them well. All right, so anyways, Game 1 and Game 3 of the Giants series were particularly fun to watch, especially how they ended. Game 2 was the disappointing game. It was a very entertaining game as there was a lot of runs scored from both sides. It's kind of each team punching back and forth. Unfortunately, it ended with the Giants winning that game 12-10. I think I heard something that it was only the 5th or 6th time in the history of the Braves franchise, which goes back many, many, many years, that they hit 4 home runs, scored 10 runs, and still lost the game. It was only like the 5th or 6th time that had ever happened. But the bullpen, Strider struggled. This is really his first big struggle as a starter in this game, and then the bullpen came in and really could not do anything. Dylan Lee was the only bullpen guy who pitched well in that game. So despite 4 home runs, 2 from Matt Olson. So again, I think he's looking better and better over this last week. But despite that, the Braves fell in Game 2. Game 4 was a bounce-back game for them. It was kind of a weird game. They scored 6 early runs, were actually up 7-1, and then just held on. Good old buddy Jock Peterson hit a home run against Jansen in the 9th, but it was a solo shot. Brought the Giants within 1, but the Braves were able to hold on very thankfully. And Swanson hit 2 home runs in this game, and he continues to hit, and man, I just hope he continues to do it. I text back and forth with a couple buddies, and it's like, are we to the point where we can trust that Swanson is not going to fall off the table? Because that's been his history. He goes through these really great hot streaks, and then he falls off the table for a month or 2, or maybe even more. But it's always been said, if Dansby can do this consistently, if he can stay on those those high highs that he can hit, if he can stay on those, then he's going to be a great player, and maybe he is. The Braves.com had an article today, their MLB site, that's saying Dansby as an MVP candidate, and that's the first time I've ever heard that. But the numbers in the defense combined, maybe he is right now. But again, he's got to continue it throughout the course of the season. And the long term of that is, well, what do the Braves do with him if he really does have an MVP caliber season? He is a free agent. It's hard to imagine the Braves paying Dansby Swanson MVP kind of money when he's only done it one time. I think there was already a lot of question marks of whether they were going to bring him back or not. So there's a lot of question marks there, but hopefully he can have that kind of season, and chips will fall where they will otherwise. All right, so let's get into a little bit of Braves news before we talk about the big elephant in the room, which of course is Freddie Freeman coming back to Atlanta tonight. I do want to get into that a little bit, but we'll talk about some other things first. I wanted to just give you a little rundown on the All-Star vote. The voting, the first tier of the voting, I think it continues through June 30th, and then they kind of whittle the field down to the top. Maybe it's the top 5 in each category. And the Braves have some kind of everybody who you'd expect to be there. They have some good showings right now. So Ronald Acuna, to me, seems like a lock. He's second for the outfield behind Mookie Betts. And, you get those top 3 outfielders get in as starters for each league. Mookie Betts and Aaron Judge are the top 2 vote getters in each league, but Acuna is right behind Mookie Betts there. And there's a pretty big lead after Acuna. So I think he's a pretty big lock, and that's impressive considering he missed the first month plus of the season, and you can only imagine that he's going to get better and better over these next, maybe over this next month before the All-Star game happens. So I expect that he will actually be there as long as he stays healthy, and of course we all pray that will happen. Second place vote getters for the Braves: Ozzie Albies, Dansby Swanson, Travis d'Arnaud, and William Contreras are all in second place in their respective spots. Just keep in mind Contreras, even though he catches a lot for the Braves, is in as a DH for All-Star voting purposes. Now, of these, of course, Ozzie being hurt, unless he gets in as a starter, will not get an All-Star game nod. So that is very unlikely to happen. Jazz Chisholm for the Marlins is top spot there, and a couple other options that will likely leapfrog Ozzie. But with Dansby, he trails Trey Turner right now by a pretty wide margin. But he's playing really well. Trey Turner's early numbers looked really good, but I think Swanson has kind of bridged that gap a lot. So it'd be interesting to see if he could maybe wrestle that starter spot away from Trey Turner. When it gets to the second layer of All-Star voting, we'll see what happens there. d'Arnaud, kind of the same thing. He's not hitting for a super high average, but he's continued to hit home runs, big hits, a lot of RBIs. I think he leads all catchers in RBIs. And then again, Contreras. Now, Contreras, I wanted to just mention this. I've been kind of frustrated with Snitker. He has not played Contreras much at all over the last week or so. I think he's only gotten a couple starts at the catcher position. Some of that, I think, was d'Arnaud was hitting so well. But it just seemed odd that there wasn't like one or two starts, more for Contreras over that stretch. He just sat a lot, and he had been one of the Braves' hottest hitters during that time. So just kind of weird. Hopefully he'll be able to get a little more opportunity over these next few weeks. All right, so anyways, those guys are all sitting in second place in their positions. Third place, Austin Riley is in third place at third base, behind a couple guys, and I expect that I think he's very close to second place behind Arenado. And if you look at the numbers, yeah, I think he absolutely is a guy who could jump up to second place. I think Riley is deserving of an all-star bid, but he's got to keep hitting, maybe get that batting average up just a little bit. But Riley's one of those guys that can go on some home run tears, and if he does that before the all-star break, I think it can really boost his candidacy. Fourth place, Matt Olson. This is actually before his last really good week, and so Olson's numbers actually very much more favorable now than they did a week ago. And I'm still of the mind that he has not really played his best baseball yet this season. And if we haven't seen it yet with him in the Braves uniform, but if he goes on a tear, then maybe he's also a guy. He's not going to get first place. Goldschmidt is having a crazy good season, maybe a top MVP candidate right now. But I think you could at least see Olson as maybe coming off the bench for the game. And remember, I don't want to forget, Brian Snitker is also an all-star. He's going to be managing the game since the Braves won the World Series, and so that's kind of cool for him as well. And as far as pitchers go, I think Fried and Wright are still in line for selections, but I do, again, Wright has faltered a little bit in his last couple starts, so we're going to have to see there, but Fried, I think, is a lock right now. So that will be really fun. I think potentially the Braves are going to have a lot of all-stars, and considering the game is in L.A., you kind of want to, show up for the Dodgers fans with the Braves coming into town. Also, really important Braves news, some injury updates. The Braves are in a situation where, we're about a month away from the not only the All-Star break, but the trade deadline. And with that in mind, some of these key guys who are injured for the Braves right now, them coming back, the Braves being able to see what they have, it's going to play a big role in the decision-making for Alex Anthopoulos. Tyler Matzik is really close to returning. All signs point to him feeling really good. He should begin his rehab any day now. He could even begin it today. From the reports, it sounds like he's pretty much ready to start that. And once he does, Mark Bowman is kind of the main Braves beat reporter. He is saying that an early July return for Matzik is very likely. And that's great. The Braves bullpen has been one of the better ones in baseball, but we've also had some bad games recently from the bullpen. I think the The depth of the bullpen is honestly a little shaky, and of course, bringing back Matzik in full form would be awesome. So it'd be great for any bullpen. But so hopefully he will get back. And Matzik is he's become one of my favorite Braves. So especially in the bullpen. So it'd be great to have him. Eddie Rosario, his rehab for his eye surgery also should begin any day now. Being a hitter, it might take him a little more time to get ready. He basically needs to go back through a kind of a abbreviated spring training situation to get him ready to return. So he might return a little later than Matzik. But with it being eye related and not anything, knee or arm or that sort of thing, I expect once he's ready to go, he'll be ready to go. And so I would suspect, that maybe before the All-Star break that could happen. Maybe just because of the timing, they would wait till after the All-Star break. But again, I think the Braves are going to want to see what he's got and make sure that he's kind of the Eddie Rosario that he was last season for the Braves. It's easy to forget because Rosario looked so bad early this season, but do not forget what he did in the playoffs last year, basically as soon as he put on a Braves uniform. If that guy comes back for the rest of this season, it's a game changer. I mean, it truly is. And, maybe there's some needs, or at least some perceived needs for the outfield or for DH. Y'all know that I'm not the biggest fan of Marcell Ozuna. He's looked a little better recently, but Rosario would be another huge bat that they could put in the lineup, and that would be awesome. So he is nearing his return, at the very least nearing his rehab stint. All right, and then Mike Soroka, he is also soon to be beginning his rehab. That's obviously a different situation with the Achilles, and for as long as he's been out. So I don't know that the timetable is, there really is no hard timetable for him. I've read that it would be likely about a month to get him up to speed. I mean, that seems like basically a full spring training for a pitcher. But they probably don't exactly know what he's going to show once he gets back on the mound. So I would think that a month is kind of the minimum for him. So you can just think through that. If he were to get back on the mound within the next few days, then yeah, post All-Star break or maybe an August 1st return for him. But imagine if all three of those guys were able to give the Braves what you would hope they would give them. Soroka, I think, is the biggest question mark of the three, but don't forget either how good he was before his injuries. So looking forward to those three guys. Kind of connected to this, I want to in my next episode dive a little deeper into what the Braves might do during the trade deadline, what they need, and you kind of go into that. But I want to spend the rest of this episode talking about Freddie Freeman and his return to Atlanta tonight. I'm really looking forward to the game, seeing Freddie back in Truist Park. It's going to be a bitter pill in many ways with him wearing that Dodger uniform. I'm still not used to it. I still really actually hate to see it. It's hard for me to even watch, Dodgers highlights on ESPN or whatever. It just doesn't seem right. I don't really think it will ever seem right. And in some ways, when I see him talk about it, I don't know that he thinks it's right. I think there are some emotions there that he's still dealing with, and probably he'll have to deal with for the rest of his career. But you can definitely be ready for some tears tonight from Freddie Freeman and maybe some other people too. I think the emotions are going to be as high in this game as they ever have been across the board. I think Freeman is going to get one of the biggest ovations, maybe the biggest ovation a visiting player has ever received in Atlanta. I really do believe that as he returns to Atlanta for the first time tonight. It should be a Freddie Freeman love fest. I think you're going to see tons of Freddie Freeman Braves jerseys in the stands. You see a few of those anyways, but I think people are going to come out and want to love on Freddie and show him how much we appreciate everything he's done for the Atlanta Braves. It's certainly not lost on me. He's already, earlier today, he gave a pregame press conference, and it was he was barely able to get through it. He couldn't. He mentioned it. He couldn't even look at the press, at the Atlanta press, while he was giving the press conference, and even then he was barely able to get out words, just crying through the whole thing. And that's one of the things I've always appreciated about Freddie. He's a real guy, and he's giving you his real emotions and his real feelings and responses. So that is going to be the case probably through the whole 3 games, but especially tonight. Of course, he gets his World Series ring, so that's going to be a really special moment for him, for Braves fans. Looking at the bigger picture of Freddie, and I talked about this a lot earlier in the season when all this happened and Freddie didn't come back. But the fact is, and I don't think any of this has changed, but the fact is I think Freddie Freeman is going to be just fine. I really think, he's going to be a Hall of Fame player. If everything goes right and he's able to stay healthy for the rest of his career, I hope that for him. But I do think that he regrets how things went down. I don't know that he's ever going to say that out loud, but I think he regrets how things went down and that he ended up in LA versus Atlanta. I think there's a sadness in that, and that he's processing through that, and that's what I think you see when he returns to Atlanta. When he talks about it, the tears come out, and so it's one of those things. I'm endlessly frustrated and saddened by it myself. I just think he should have been a Brave for life, and it didn't happen that way. I'm not going to rehash that again because we've been through it. But anyways, I hope that this weekend can be an opportunity for Braves fans to express their love and appreciation for Freddie. I hope that he feels that wholeheartedly. And I do think in many ways this is the start of the healing process of just making sure that Freddie is embraced as one of the greatest Braves, especially Atlanta Braves, ever. And he is that. I just want to take a minute to just in really basic statistical numbers, to point that out. So Freddie has the 6th most home runs all time as a Brave. He has the 11th best batting average all time. These are all Braves, not just Atlanta Braves. The 7th most RBIs all time. 10th most runs scored. 7th most hits. 3rd most doubles machine, as we know. 6th most extra base hits overall. 7th most games played. 6th most total bases. 6th best on base percentage. 6th best slugging percentage, and the 5th best OPS. That is Freddie Freeman, a great. And when you go through all of those numbers, the guys you see ahead of him in almost every category, it's Chipper, it's Hank Aaron, it's Eddie Matthews, it's occasionally Andrew Jones in a couple categories. Batting average and a couple on base, you'll see Ralph Garr's name, or Joe Adcock, who's a old school Milwaukee Brave. But you see those names, and that's it. I mean, it's Freddie Freeman up there, and that's through basically 12 years. If Freddie had remained a Brave his whole career, he's probably 1, 2, or 3 in every one of those categories. So that being said, he is a great Brave. He's one of the all-time greats. Not to mention he brought a World Series to Atlanta. And his number is going to be retired up there one day. Absolutely it will be. It should be. By the way, just a side note, I know this is about Freddie, but looking at those numbers, Andrew Jones should be up there too. His number should be retired as well. An all-time great Brave. I just want to point that out. But Freddie, it is Freddie's night, and man, I hope he mostly enjoys it. I know the tears will be flowing, like I said, but just looking at the game tonight, it is a big game. It is a big series. The Braves come in playing well. Obviously, I think they're 18-3 in June, and they have a great chance against some tougher teams here at the end of the month to finish strong. Ian Anderson's going to go up against Urias tonight. And the Braves have been able during June to cut the deficit with the Mets to only 4 games. The Mets have come down to earth a little bit in June as the Braves have played really well. So another chance to maybe cut that number even down to 3 if they get a win tonight. I hope they do. Like I said, it's going to be a really strange, interesting, but probably a fun night in Atlanta. So hope you enjoy it. Hope you're able to watch it. I'm definitely going to. And you guys have a great day, and I will talk to you soon.